Mark your calendars because Cheekwood is throwing its very first community celebration, June 3rd through June 7th. And guess what? You're invited. Enjoy 5 days packed full of fun for all ages, from free yoga and $5 gardening classes to live music, puppets, and even a Taylor Swift dance party. And when the sun goes down, catch the Princess Bride under the stars or a Shakespearean cocktail crawl. It's all happening at Cheekwood. Learn more at cheekwood.org. Cowboy Up Nashville! Music City Rodeo, Nashville's first and only PRCA rodeo, is coming to Bridgestone Arena for 3 unforgettable nights featuring the world's top pro rodeo athletes and live music from Nashville legends. Reba on May 29th, Jelly Roll on May 30th, and Tim McGraw on May 31st. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, each night ticketed separately. For more information, visit MusicCityRodeo.com.
Today on CityCast Nashville, it's time for our Friday News Roundup. I'm joined by producer Daniel Sumstine and Nashville Scene reporter Eli Motycka, who's here to break down his coverage of the ongoing ICE operations in town, more efforts to address our affordable housing crisis, and the upcoming budget negotiations. It's Friday, May 16th. I'm your executive producer, Whitney Pastorek, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Eli, thank you so much for joining us on this special Marie-free episode of the Friday News Roundup. We're glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
You're not quite a substitute for Marie. We're going to need you to be prepared to talk about Taylor Swift at some point.
I got us covered on that.
Fantastic. Well, folks, we've reached the end of our second week of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement activity all over town, from South Nashville up to Madison. These dragnets have even made it to Lower Broadway over the weekend. The kitchens of bars owned by a prominent local Trump supporter were forced to close. Eli, you reported that story for The Scene. What happened?
We were getting some firsthand accounts that immigration agents were spotted there. They were kind of traveling to different restaurants. I was able to talk to someone who worked at one of Steve Smith's bars, and Steve Smith is a very wealthy owner of several bars and is credited with turning Lower Broadway into what it is today, mainly through Tootsie's Orchid Lounge and Honky Tonk Central, the diner. And I'll take it from the perspective of one person I talked to. So this person worked at one of Steve Smith's restaurants around 9:30 p.m. on Saturday night. The manager sort of came to the back of the house and was like, anyone who doesn't have legal authority or like immigration status in this country needs to leave now, quickly. And this happened at least 2 other spots too. So these kitchens like basically cleared out. They were already short staffed because people are afraid to travel on the roads for fear of getting pulled over by Tennessee Highway Patrol and handed over to ICE. And I was told that some drink service did continue at some spots, but regardless, it's, there's many millions of dollars of sales that take place on Lower Broadway. So it's a big hit to those restaurants individually. And it's also no secret that a lot of the economy in this country, and specifically in Nashville, especially with industries like construction and tourism, that a lot of the people doing the work are immigrants to this country. Nashville is a destination where people can go and they can start to make a paycheck, build their lives here, follow what, we're told is the American dream. And it was a connection between Steve Smith, who is a big Trump supporter, knows President Trump personally. And President Trump, of course, came into office advocating rounding up immigrants, demonizing immigrants, calling them violent criminals. So Steve Smith knows this guy, shares his politics, also, directly is making his money off of immigrants coming and working in his bars and restaurants.
If this sort of thing starts to impact our tourist economy, do you think that that might make people reflect differently upon what these, quote, mass deportation efforts are doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it really shows the impact of the absence of immigrants, and it shows how important they are to our city and our city functioning. And we also see that, from ICE arrests recently and from information that ICE itself put out, Department of Homeland Security itself put out, these are mostly people without criminal backgrounds. far majority, from what we understand, don't have confirmed violent crime, certainly. And yet we're being told from those same agencies that these are targeted operations taking out violent criminals. So it does show and underscore how big a part they are of our lives, even if we don't know them personally.
It's such a bummer that people are fine going and having a great time down on Broadway, and it's not until it impacts their ability to party on Broadway to where they're like, oh, maybe I should have empathy for what's happening in our city.
Well, Eli, as you mentioned, we did get that statement from the Department of Homeland Security in which they confirmed that they have picked up 196 Nashville residents. Less than half of those arrested had any criminal record. And meanwhile, one of our 3 usually absentee federal representatives has inserted himself into the discussion. Republican Congressman Andy Ogles, here in our 5th congressional district, is now calling for Mayor O'Connell to be investigated for obstruction of all of this local ICE activity. But Eli, you've been covering this story, obviously, as you mentioned, going on ride-alongs. Have you seen anything since this began on May 4th that would indicate to you that the mayor or anyone in Metro is, quote, obstructing the operations?
I haven't witnessed anything personally. I have witnessed the city and specifically Metro Legal Director Wally Dietz exhibit a pretty sophisticated legal understanding of what the city and city's law enforcement can and can't do, the ways in which it can and can't coordinate, and just the legal boundaries and guardrails distinguishing immigration enforcement, which is a federal responsibility, and the responsibilities of the local government. The city knows those border lines. They've been accused of, by a lot of people, of not doing more to obstruct ICE or to protect Nashvillians. Freddie O'Connell is kind of taking criticism on both sides for both obstructing and aiding ICE. You would think that it might be a political moment for him to at least clarify one of those 2 different interpretations of what's been going on. But what I have noticed is that the city knows what it should or shouldn't do within the bounds of the law, and it has been following that pretty strictly. Though immigration is a big buzzword and a great way to get your base, if your base really doesn't like immigrants, riled up. So it seems to be what Representative Ogles is doing.
And it's interesting you bring that up, too, about the boundaries, Eli, of who does what the chain of responsibility is, federal, state, city. The Tennessean is reporting that the Tennessee Highway Patrol, THP, has had such a nice time hanging out with ICE for the past couple of weeks that they've now officially applied for the 287G program, which allows state and local agencies to carry out some federal agent duties such as jail and warrant enforcement. The THP has applied for a task force model that would allow state troopers to enforce some activities while under ICE supervision and oversight.
They're basically doing it already. There's also a statute in the Tennessee code, a Tennessee law, that gives state troopers, certain responsibilities for immigration enforcement.
I was just going to say, a reminder to everybody that starting July 1st, the new state law goes into effect that could, in fact, criminalize any sort of intervention by anyone in Metro, an elected official in Metro, in these operations under this new sanctuary policies ban. Even though we're not a sanctuary city, we can't be a sanctuary city. That's already against state law. But somebody like the mayor could be arrested, removed from office, and charged with a felony were he to cross this invisible line.
Yeah, and we don't know exactly how that'll play out. And I've talked to some council members who have retained personal counsel to see if that will personally apply to them or if they will mount a challenge. And we really are in new terrain where the state and the federal government are both pushing for more aggressive immigration enforcement and deportations as a matter of politics, mainly. Like we saw, they're trying to do very public fear tactics to give the impression to every immigrant that they could be deported and to spread that kind of fear. But the level of enforcement already has abated. It may ramp back up. It may not.
Well, rumor has it that the ICE agents' hotel reservations were only good through yesterday, the 15th. So I'm hoping that the Eye of Sauron can give our neighbors a break for a little while.
I was driving around Nolensville the other day, and it's just a complete ghost town. It's horrible. I mean, my favorite taco shop, Tacos y Mariscos, is over there. And my heart breaks for just all those local restaurants around there that are so good and really rely on the community to show up and support their small businesses, really hoping that they can get back out on track.
Yeah, I want to shout out Tacos y Mariscos El Tapatio myself. I, too, went there this week because, Daniel, you have talked so highly of their food. And let me tell you, folks, you need to go get you some food. Even if you can't make it down there, do a DoorDash or something. I had a carnitas burrito that was outstanding. And I also bought an entire chicken, which I'm now trying to eat. It's going to take me a minute. Anyway, so we still encourage everyone to donate to the Remix TN's Nashville Unidos Fund and the Community Foundation's Belonging Fund if you want to help the families of those who've been taken away. And yeah, if you've got the ability and time this weekend, go down to South Nashville or up to Madison or find any immigrant-owned business in town and give them a little bit of love.
Nashville has plenty of live music, but you're missing out if you've never experienced Musicians Corner in Centennial Park. It's unlike anything else in town. First off, it's a 16-year-old multi-genre concert series that's absolutely free. Plus, it's pet-friendly, has a kids' activities area, and you can pull out a blanket, grab a bite, and hear some of the finest musicians from Nashville and beyond. Musicians Corner takes place on Friday nights and Saturday afternoons through June 14th with live music, food trucks, artisan vendors, craft beer, wine, cocktails, and more. Friday, May 16th features Johnny Fritz with Joshua Headley, Lady Couch, Autumn Nichols, and more. Saturday, May 17th has Susto String Band, Sugar Daisy, Riley Whitaker, and others. It's produced by the nonprofit Centennial Park Conservancy and supported by CityCast Nashville. Visit musicianscorner.com for the full lineup. If you haven't heard yet, Cheekwood is hosting their very first community celebration, June 3rd through June 7th. That's 5 days packed full of fun for all ages. During the day, you can come and enjoy free yoga with Small World Yoga. Explore a musical petting zoo brought to you by our friends at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. Catch performances by the Nashville Opera or the Nashville Puppet Truck. There will also be a friendship bracelet making station, animals from the Nashville Zoo. Oh, and how could I forget? $5 gardening classes for the whole family. Then, as the sun sets, grab dinner from one of the many food trucks and watch The Princess Bride under the stars. Or sip your way through a Shakespearean cocktail crawl, courtesy of the Nashville Shakespeare Festival. You can also catch an evening with Grammy Award winner Rodney Crowell, dance to music from Sonny Dada and his 12-piece band, or sing along to everyone's favorite Beatles songs with Forever Abbey Road. There's something for everyone of all ages, so come on by. Learn more at cheekwood.org.
Eli, you recently published an article in the Nashville Scene highlighting Mayor O'Connell's push for affordable housing. Could you tell us more about the Unified Housing Strategy and what that plan is about?
Yes, the Unified Housing Strategy, along with several other city commissioned and outside produced studies, basically just highlights first the lack of housing and the shortage of housing units in the city. And second, the Unified Housing Strategy makes more of an effort to kind of show how we go from here to there. But zoning is a big way to open up more land to more units, and that's basically the math. Like if you've been to other major cities like Los Angeles, which is sprawling but has a lot of medium density housing units, New York City obviously incredibly dense. These are places where single family neighborhoods so close to the city center cease to make sense when more and more people move to the city. And I don't think that the mayor is or the city or the council is going to destroy these neighborhoods or force development in these neighborhoods, though that is a narrative that is coming out from, some people who are suspicious of development.
There have been some virtual meetings on this already, and the next one's going to be May 21st. Those fears that you just mentioned are very real for a lot of people. How are folks responding to this?
I don't want to give too much credibility or attention to what is a minority, it seems, of homeowners in wealthy neighborhoods, especially in single family neighborhoods. But they are organized and they are vocal and they do show up to these meetings, and they fear that having more density will change the neighborhood that they move into, which that is true. I mean, the neighborhoods, land, cities, they do change what the unified housing strategy and what the planning department they're all kind of moving towards is this recognition that we have people still moving to Nashville in large numbers. We have lots of people who want to raise families here, and they're just the distribution of square footage, space, and land to people, that is like becoming more and more of an outlier, especially when compared to other cities. For example, empty nesters or aging couples living in 3, 4, 5 bedroom, 5,000 square foot homes, 4,000 square foot homes. And then you have young couples with children or young children who are in small apartments or condos. When you look at urban planning theory and you talk about like space, you want to put young families that are growing and multiplying in places where they can succeed around other children, near playgrounds, near schools. And you want older adults to be around amenities, parks. And like this math is just it's not really making sense because the city hasn't been able to grapple with the zoning changes. So that's a very long-winded answer of saying that like it certainly seems that the city is moving towards changing some of its zoning and codes because of this strategy and because of the need.
We also saw a new report published by the National Community Reinvestment Coalition that found that Nashville exhibited the most intense gentrification of any intense gentrification of any U.S. city between 2010 and 2020. I was reading how Freddie outlined that we need to build 90,000 new homes on top of what we're already building over the next decade. Where do we actually have space to build that kind of volume without displacing current residents?
Well, first of all, a lot of the just land is in the northwest quadrant of the city. And this is also where there's a lot of like forested land. So there's different stories, different tensions every corner of the city. A lot of the planners and the builders and developers that I talk to, a lot of the land that they would like to put maybe quadplexes, triplexes, more dense housing on, they can't because they're in some of these historic single-family neighborhoods that have extremely strong protections, like Forest Hills, Green Hills.
I think it's interesting to follow this rezoning effort from Councilmember Ginny Welsh in District 16. That's a very historically single-family district. It's like Glencliff, Woodbine area. So she wants to apply an urban design overlay to allow for more density, and planning has disapproved her overlay. We talked about this on last week's Friday News Roundup. She's very upset, but said she's going to bring it to the council floor anyway. I mean, Eli, you wrote that Scene cover story on missing middle housing. Is what Councilmember Welsh is proposing to do in line with the sorts of things that we would need to do to achieve these housing targets?
It sounds like you know the answer to that. Yes.
You're the expert. I just work here.
And like the role of the planning department continues to be somewhat unique as we look at other cities because it has gotten involved in politics a bit, both because it has these community meetings where it fields angry questions from people with legitimate worries about how their neighborhoods are changing and how they're not getting the same investment as other neighborhoods and they're not getting the same city amenities. And some of these guiding documents like the Unified Housing Strategy or Nashville Next or Imagine Nashville, like these are supposed to set out best practices to solve problems. And instead, there does seem to be this element of politics of like not wanting to make people mad, not wanting to go against public opinion.
But is it really public opinion, or is it just the opinion of the people who have time in their lives to show up at meetings?
Well, that is an element of public opinion, those people who are showing up to meetings. And that is an aspect of local politics, is that you can have an outsized impact on your city if you show up. And that can be like both a positive and a negative, depending on who you are and what you're advocating for.
Well, and then we add one more super fun layer to all of this in a story that WPLN reported this week. Daniel, tell us about that.
Yeah, so shocker, Nashville is extremely difficult to make a living and have a good life in. Basically, wages for many local jobs are failing to keep up. You hear about how difficult it is to make a living anywhere. I don't think this is like a uniquely Nashville problem. And I personally get really bummed out about this because it almost feels like a national issue of corporate greed and this never ending rat race to maximize shareholder profit. There's obviously a lot of things we can do on a local level, but on a federal level, it feels almost helpless.
But Daniel, you did something really cool this week. Do you want to tell folks about that?
Well, so this is where I get hung up because I'm feeling conflicted because after living in this city for 10 years and saving, I was fortunate to close on a home this week, which I'm super stoked about. I don't want to sound hypocritical in saying all of this, but I'm now like wrestling with the tension between wanting my investment to appreciate and hoping that Nashville stays a place where people of all income levels can afford to live and thrive.
There is a split. Like we started this conversation talking about people who are struggling to make any kind of rent and people who own multi-million-dollar properties around the city. And also people who are on that lower end, maybe new Americans, new residents who are struggling with like whether they're going to get sent out of the country, deported. So being able to close that gap is what will make a healthier city, is what like a lot of these different data points are pointing to.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, those goals often fade. That may have happened to you. It has definitely happened to me. And that's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now Prolon is upping their game with the new Next-Gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Next-Gen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top U.S. medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. I've been doing the 5-day program, and I feel so much better. I really enjoy the tasty energy bars, the snacks and soups, and the fact that I can enjoy meals, even though the calorie count is super low. The flavors and textures are excellent. An olive oil snack here, broccoli and quinoa soup there, hibiscus tea, a yummy nut bar. It's got the benefits of a 5-day fast, but doesn't have the challenge of doing it with pure liquids. It's a system reset. And also, I know this sounds funny, but it's not. The packaging and directions are fantastic, clear, and well organized and thoughtful. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering CityCast listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/city. That's PROLONLIFE.com/city to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/city.
Real quick, before we get into good news, we got to talk about budget season. Our property taxes are officially going up. Sorry, Daniel. Even though the tax rate is going to be one of the lowest in history, we've explained how the property assessment process works and how the certified tax rate has to be adjusted after those reassessments to remain revenue neutral. But the rate that Mayor O'Connell is proposing around this year's budget will, in fact, be a 26% increase in the amount folks pay. I'm not great at math, but the way that I have figured out how to wrap my head around that is basically like, even though the rate will be lower, it's going to be 2.814% instead of the 3.254% that we are paying right now. Because property is worth more, then people will need to pay more, right? So Mayor O'Connell is calling this the cost of governing. And I do think that we can all acknowledge that with so much of what's going on right now, like end of COVID era funding, all the money being pumped into stadium, East Bank infrastructure, and of course the cuts from the federal government, we've got to find some money in the couch cushions to pay for those little luxuries like schools, sidewalks.
I'm glad you've already explained the tax rate stuff because I've done that.
I wasn't going to make you do that.
Confusing.
But Eli, do you see this tax rate increase becoming a big fight for the mayor? Obviously, opponents were already out protesting his state of metro.
I don't think so. I mean, yes, there will be like a vocal minority, or there is a vocal minority. I don't think he's really going to face a challenge passing it because I think a lot of the council is on his side. And if you own property and you've seen it appreciate, like you're sitting on an enormous amount of money, a slice of which you will pay so that we can continue to function as a society. So I think that most people recognize that. And while it is a hit, especially to people on fixed income, especially to people who have lived here for a long time, and there are avenues for relief for some of those cases, I don't think he's going to have much challenge passing the actual law. It's just kind of like a thing that people will complain about.
Well, so the way this works now is that the mayor has delivered his proposed budget and this proposed property tax increase, and this all has to be approved by council. The budget chair for the second year is Councilmember at Large Delicia Porterfield. She has called Mayor O'Connell's budget, quote, a good starting point. So she's going to work along with other council members over the next few weeks to create a substitute budget, which will incorporate community feedback. They're having hearings right now in Metro for what different departments are asking for. And it'll also involve council priorities. Last year, for example, that's how we got the Office of Youth Safety, is that they heard from the Southern Movement Committee that they wanted some money to be dedicated to that, and they managed to get that through. The budget public hearing, aka Metro Council After Dark, that's going to be June 3rd. That's where you're going to see folks showing up in droves to advocate, sometimes into the wee hours of the morning. And you could show up to advocate for what you would like to see funded. Eli, do you think we'll see many wholesale changes to what the mayor has proposed budget-wise this year?
I think it'll be small percentage-wise, but we will see many changes. Like it will be small in dollars, in the millions. But I think that this council
just a couple
will push,
mil.
Yeah, of your tax dollars. And, again, increasing the property tax allows the city to have more money to play with or to spend. And I do think that this council will push specifically on things like housing, like the Barnes Affordable Housing Trust, and, like the things in line with the Office of Youth Safety, sort of smaller but more ambitious and different and progressive pilots or things that could potentially grow into more routine annual investments. I think that we will see some of those.
We're going to keep tracking this. I think the 17th is when the third reading for the budget is scheduled for. So lots to come between now and then. Daniel, hit it.
Donna.
Good news. All right. Eli,
Shout
you
out
didn't want to
Nicole.
join the song. Your friend Nicole wrote the song.
Donna. 4 notes. Is that a song?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well,
and
you
easy.
are a songwriter, Daniel.
I should actually score a good news theme song, but that's for another day.
In all your spare time.
Yeah. There is a video that was released by the Titans because the NFL schedule came out yesterday that has gone viral. It is so good. Their social media team kills it every year. It's one of those super cheesy healthcare videos where people are always like dancing or walking down the street. Whitney, what did they call it?
It's Schedule Rizzy. It's like a
Yeah.
pharmaceutical ad for Schedule Rizzy. And then the highlight of it really is that they list the side effects as one typically does. So it's like side effects may include, and then it lists all the teams that we're playing. So like the Texans game is imposter syndrome, which I'm sorry. I don't know that this is the year to mock the Texans for having imposter syndrome, but carry on. The New Orleans Saints was slurred speech.
And then Chiefs was nausea, which I'll be there. My mom and I are going. I'm hyped.
What else? Oh, altitude sickness was for Denver. Hand, foot, and mouth disease for the Colts. Jock itch for the Jags. Eli, are you a football fan?
I've been following Nashville SC more closely this season.
Nice.
They are good. It's so much better than last year. All right. And then we've got 2 great outdoor music series that start this weekend. Musicians Corner is kicking off tonight in Centennial Park with Lady Couch and Johnny Fritz featuring Joshua Headley. And it's wonderful. Just go hang out in Centennial. It's free. Chairs, dogs, kids, blankets, great music on a big stage. And then here in East Nashville, we've got the Cornelia Airport concerts, formerly known as the Pickin' Party. Those get going tomorrow with Chloe Kimes and Runner of the Woods. Always great vibes.
Yeah, we went to that last year. It was so good.
And then watch out for road closures tomorrow because it's the Tour de Nash, which is an annual bike ride all over town hosted by Walk Bike Nashville. It's not a race, but it's just a chance for people to get out and assert their right to ride a bicycle on our streets here in Nashville. And then finally, Sunday is Nashville Humane's annual Mutt Strut 5K also in Shelby, come out and celebrate the place that gave me Wally. Eli, what are you doing this weekend?
I'm going to Ted Rhodes Park to play in Monkey Bowl, which is an annual ultimate frisbee tournament.
If y'all don't know, Eli is like a really good ultimate player.
Thank you. I spend a lot of time doing it. We may have some scattered storms this weekend, though.
Well, that's what brings us to the end here. We just one more time. Let's just talk about Fridays by the River, which is probably going to get rained out. We hope not. We hope that the severe weather that's forecasted for tonight holds off long enough for us to enjoy the last one. We're going to have music from Stacey Antonell and food from Bad Luck Burger Club, Nicoletto's Get That Pasta Salad, Lady Dog's Mag Mile Pizza, and of course, King of Pops. It will be the last one for the spring. So come out to Shelby Park, weather permitting. Eli, I hope it's not too muddy for your ultimate frisbee.
Yes, I hope so too.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. Our vacationing host is Marie Cecile Anderson. Our executive producer is me, Whitney Pastorek. Our producer is Daniel Sumstine. Our Hey Nashville newsletter editor is Margaret Kingsbury, who is celebrating a birthday today. Email her at nashville@citycast.fm and tell her you're glad she was born. Our theme music is by Prof Jenkins with additional music by Sven Lindahl, DM, James, Abbas Premji, Dwayne Russell, and the Rag Hat Band from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Y'all take care of each other.